decide that the only thing I'm going to do is keep working, that doesn't serve me well at one point or another. And I suppose that will tie us quite nicely into what it is that we're going to talk about today, and that is injuries. So, first of all, I think let's lay the foreground when it comes to listeners of when you're someone who is working on yourself and when you're trying to achieve things, even if it is just making sure that you're in a good physical condition before the 29 age of peak running performance, peak cardio, even if that's all you're wanting to do, we can have such a tremendous bearing placed on how much, or our worth is so attached to how much output we have. And when you get injured, of course, that's a real spanner in the works, because all of a sudden the thing that you've derived so much of your value from is no longer there for you. This is something, of course, you are struggling with at the moment. I have struggled with myself, but I'm going to let you take the reins and run me through what's going on with your injury, and we'll move from there.
Sure. So I've got probably right now a mild hip flexor strain, and it's sort of been around for a year and a half, almost 2 years. It's gotten better over the time. I've sort of had it, but then I'll keep using it or get complacent and think it's going to be perfect, and but then I'll go like left foot only when I injure my right ankle as well. So I'll go left foot only, hip flexor gone again, because you're absolutely leathering it with your left, and it's like, you know what, and it's just setback after setback really. But it's not something that's not my fault, because I know for a fact, I mean, we were talking about it earlier, where if I just rested it for like a certain amount of time, done nothing on it, it would probably be fine right now, because I would have worked it up and done conditioning on it. But I think it's from where I've gone, it doesn't hurt anymore, got to go straight to the extreme, and then just injure it again. But that's my experience with it, at least.
That's the problem, though. I think everyone faces this dilemma where it's like you get an injury and you might be at least somewhat willing to go, all right, fine, I'll lay off for a bit and I'll come back. Once I'm ready to go, I'll come back. And when you are ready to go, you come back, as you say, with full force, full throttle, as though you haven't been injured. It's so difficult to temper it because, I mean, not to mention the fact that you're compiling all of that sort of irritation of not being able to play with a sort of excitement of being able to play. So I can finally go and play football, I can finally go and run, or I can go to the gym now. Let me go and pick up where I left off. And it's so hard because it's, you take it from the perspective of, well, if I'm fine, then I'm all right, let's go. And as a result of that, of course, the wicked cycle continues to perpetuate of you get one injury, which then you'll compensate for, and you'll get another injury, and you can get into this really pernicious cycle with it, where it's like you end up, as we touched on, you have a 4-week injury that turns into a year-long one because you just won't let it go. The reason why I want to talk about this is because I think people get so sort of attached to all of the good stuff with exercise, which is great, and all of the mental sort of increases that you're afforded as a result of that. People get so attached to it that when it's not there, they feel sort of incomplete. You almost feel as though you're doing something wrong, in fact. I've noticed with myself, my ability to say, well, the reason why you're not going to sparring, or the reason why you're not going and doing that run is because it's not wise for you to do it. My ability to do that is fucking awful. My mind will say, sorry, why are we not running today? Well, because my leg is absolutely fucked. Well, so what? You should be going anyway. Why don't you just walk? Why don't you go and do something? And it's like, and that's a big thing. Is you'll go, well, I'll do something. I remember at one point I was running, I don't know how many miles, but I was running quite a bit each morning. And as a result of that, I tarnished my legs pretty quickly because I went from not running ever to running every day in the morning.
What was it of interest? Shin splints?
It was shin splints was certainly in there, but I'm sure it was a hamstring. It was either hamstring or quad. I can't remember now. It's about 2 years ago now. But I remember at one point, I vividly remember the action itself and then what someone said to me about it. I remember going, well, if I can't run a few miles or whatever it was, let me just go and run around the block. And I ran about 3 minutes, literally the smallest amount of running you could possibly fathom. And I remember saying it to one of my mates who's an army guy, and he was like, are you stupid? What are you doing? Why are you running? You're injured. Just leave it alone. And I think you get stuck in that cycle where it's like, you cannot fathom the fact that the reason as to why you're not doing this is because it's not good for you to do it, because you're so used to it being good for you to do.
And you get in that bad mindset when you're not doing any physical activity, because it's like you just feel lazy, you probably think you're putting on a lot of weight, or you're getting a lot more unfit. But the reality is, if you leave it for about 2 or 3 weeks, you're not going to lose that much progress. But it's hard for you to know that, even when you know it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say I've got a similar experience with what you were saying about the running, where I didn't go on runs for a while. I don't know if you remember last year.
Yeah.
I didn't go on runs for a while because of my hip flexor. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'll just get into skipping, because that's just, that's calves, that's shoulders and things like that. So I did skipping so much that I got shin splints, and then ended up not being able to do skipping or running. So it just ended up backfiring drastically.
But that's what it is, though, isn't it? It's like that constant, well, I've got to do something.
Exactly that, yeah.
And that, it's such a difficult prospect to sort of come to terms with the fact that the thing that has served you so well is now the very thing that you need to not do. And it sort of ties into this idea that actually, I think it was Alex Hormozy said this, and I thought it was really wise when he's talking about morning routines. He said people get so attached to their morning routines where it's like, if for whatever reason they've woken up in the wrong place, or they haven't had the time, for whatever reason they haven't been able to do their morning routine, they will be so out of sorts because they haven't managed to do it that they'll ruin their day. And he was like, if your sense of worth is so attached to 15 minutes of meditation and a cold shower that your entire day is lost if you can't do that, then you've got a problem.
Yeah.
There's something you need to change, because you're not deriving an appropriate amount of value from yourself. You're just looking at, how much am I doing? When am I doing it? Did I want to do it? And that's it. Yeah,
I mean, the most positive thing I could do in that situation, where you do miss, 15 minutes of meditation, for example, is just say, okay, do it tomorrow.
Exactly. Or I'll find another time to do it.
But I have struggled with that before. When you have a routine, you miss something, you're like, oh, you know what, I missed it today, might as well not do that today, and you just fall out of it. You can do that. I mean, I don't really have a routine at the moment, which I think is good and bad. It's a double-edged sword, routines, really, because you can find yourself falling into a deeper pit after you fall out of it. So it's a good subject, to be fair.
I think routines are a funny. They touch on exactly the same thing as injuries, where it's like you are deriving your sense of worth as a person directly from what you're doing. This is something I've struggled with perpetually since I decided that I wanted to do good things for myself. The ever more consistent battle has been making sure I'm aware of the fact that my value is not directly hinged on my output.
Okay.
Because, points like the one of injury, if I'm to take my sense of value, my sense of good feeling towards myself from exercise, the point upon which I cannot exercise, I won't feel any value towards myself.
Yep.
And it's it really is a sort of castle built upon sand, where it's like you can have a bastion of sort of good feeling that can push away the negative stuff. The whole essence as to why you have a routine is to keep the bad stuff out and away. You can have that, but if your value to yourself is only placed within that, the minute that's gone, you're fucked, because it's not going to be there forever. I mean, this is something that you absolutely cannot deny, is you won't always be able to do your routine.
No.
Or you won't always be able to do your exercise. There will come a day when, for whatever reason, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And if you're so attached to it that's a seemingly the end of the world for you, which I know is a problem for people. It certainly is for me.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to change.
No, I completely agree. Something I've been looking at recently, actually, I was telling a couple of my friends, I made a meal plan, and I made a sort of recovery plan for obviously the hip flexor, and a separate workout plan for things that aren't injured. And I've sort of told myself, instead of, sticking to it religiously, because I know that I have done that before, where I'll, block out everything and just focus on those things only. instead of doing that, if I do miss them, I just pick them up another time. Consistency is the only thing I want, and if that means missing a day, I'll just include it in the next day, or fit it in, like you said, fit it in around that day. I just think it's quite unhealthy to stick to routines religiously.
I agree.
Unless, some people it probably does work, but for me it doesn't. Because you spiral into a negative mindset once you fall out that routine. For me, a big thing is it's kind of funny, but I binge eat quite a lot. Yeah. I love my food, so it's like I eat when I'm bored, which is a very bad thing. But it's obviously when you have a meal plan, it's going to be easier for me to sort of get out of that mindset. So I won't snack. Yeah. I'll only eat the things on that paper and things like that. That's all right.
One French fries.
Do you want French fries? Yeah, that's
French fries.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, honestly, it's listening to me. But yeah, no, I think that's a interesting point. I think consistency's fine, but religious routines, they're not necessary in my opinion. But,
I think when you put yourself into a routine that is as religious as some of us decide to put ourselves into, you do open yourself up to negative frames of mind that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
I notice it's catastrophizing, I think, is quite a big thing for me, where it's like, if I, for whatever reason, have missed something, or in days gone by missed something, I would be so concerned that all of a sudden I'm falling off.
Just thinking about it all the time.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the floodgates of negativity have opened, and, say, for instance, I made sure I didn't want to eat any, just to put it onto the point of French fries, I didn't want to eat any bad food today, and then I ate something because I just didn't think about it and reached for the cookie jar.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, then I'm thinking, wow, all of the last years of work are gone. I'm clearly not the person I thought I was, because there my hand goes into the cookie jar. And I think people really take this to the fullest extent of, if you make any sort of lapse or any inconsistency or any sort of mild deviation from your routine, that all of a sudden all is lost and you've got a problem on your hands. And it's like, no, you don't. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like it really doesn't matter that much. No. And I think you're totally right that when it comes to sort of being a bit more flexible with your routine, that's the way to do it. I think Joe Rogan's got a wonderful quote on consistency of, it's like, when you want to achieve something great, it's like building a mountain with layers of paint.
Okay.
Which is the reference to consistency of, it's very small incremental steps that push you forth towards a worthwhile goal. And within that, it's worth mentioning that you don't have to be on the ball all the time. If you're consistent, consistency doesn't necessarily mean every single day.
No.
It means over the duration of a long period of time, you are reliably doing the thing. Now, for some people, I find for me that a daily routine works for me. Okay. I like that. And there are a few things that I have to say I should be speaking with hypocrisy on, because if I wasn't to have, if I, for whatever reason, I do cold showers every morning. I have done for years now.
Okay.
When the water went out recently, that was a problem for me. That, yeah. I remember at one point I just filled up as much lukewarm water in the bath as possible and just laid in it for a few minutes, because I was like, I have to do something that's close enough.
You can go grab some ice from the garage.
Do you know what? I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
I've done that a couple of times after football.
You know what my nightmares are going to be tonight. Why didn't I get those ice baths? No, but that's the point. It's like I know this feeling, because I would imagine if you said to me this morning, no cold shower, I'd go, well, it'd throw me out for the day.
Yeah.
And I think it is hard to pull away from this, because when you know that something's good for you, it is so difficult to understand that sometimes it's not good for you.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I've noticed with routines, and this is something that I really admire you for, because you've got a wonderful bearing on this, is your routine can get in the way of things that are more important. You can not go out tonight because you're focused on doing your routine, or you cannot see someone that you really should have gone and saw because this is my time for meditation, I need to do this now. It's like you miss a lot when you do that. Routine doesn't account for the sort of the what would the word be? Just the sort of complexities of life, like the randomness, I suppose.
Yeah, things that throws at you.
Yeah.
I think only my point of view anyway, I always sort of try and fit my routine around the people I see in a way. Just because I feel like I can always do my routine. I can always, do something on my own in the morning or move it somewhere. But unfortunately, like with schedules and other people's routines, funny enough, you've got to fit them around that as well. So, but usually if I've ever got plans, I'll always put the productive stuff on the back burner and then sort of prioritise that, to be honest, because I feel like those experiences are more important than sort of my 15 minutes of meditation.
Exactly.
To be fair, I haven't meditated in a while, but I probably should. It was quite good when I did. But it's, I'd always prioritise experiences and relationships over sort of myself, which is a good and bad thing.
I don't know. I want you to go into that, actually. Why do you think first of all, why do you think it's a good thing?
I think it's a good thing because, we're humans, we communicate all the time. There's not a scientific reason for me. I just think people feel better surrounded by other people, usually. It's different because I am actually slightly an introvert, but I still enjoy hanging out with people, usually just small numbers of people. I don't know, I just think I feel better spending time with my girlfriend, spending time with my friends, because think about the amount of times you hang out with your friends, the amount of times you laugh and things like that. You don't really do that on your own.
No, you don't. You could watch the funniest TV programme of all time.
And just be stone-faced.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be that funny.
No. Sometimes it's, very funny.
If it's Ricky Gervais.
You go into like a laughing fit or whatever. But no, most of my laughing comes from hanging out with my friends, my girlfriend, and I smile more, I'm happier. It's just natural. And I think I will value those later in life more than I'll value, a run I do in the morning. Obviously running helps towards being happy as well because you get the dopamine rush and things like that. But I think that's it's quite important. But obviously, coming back to what the bad things would be, I could go into a sort of routine of negativity in a way. So I would wake up late. I would not be prepared for the day. I would be tired. I wouldn't have slept like at a normal time. In my opinion, they're minute cons to the pros that I would get from obviously having those experiences with people in my life. So that's pretty much my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. I can understand the perspective totally, and it's something that I try. It doesn't come naturally to me. Okay. I have to try to sort of keep in mind that's the case.
Okay.
And I think something that's helped me on this point is I'm going to use the cliched word of balance that seems so elusive to anyone in self-improvement, because it is. I think the method that I have found most useful for this, the thing that has worked best for me, has been to be aware of the fact that the things you do for yourself make you a better version of yourself for the people that you care about.
Okay. Yeah.
So from my perspectives, if I keep myself in check and I do the things that I know make me happy and make me feel more particularly fulfilled, then I'm not going to be so tight and anxious around people. I would undeniably, if I had a really lovely evening out with friends or family, whatever, in the evening, of course, if I hadn't done any work that day until that point, I wouldn't enjoy the evening.
Right, because you'd be thinking about what you couldn't do.
I would be itch would not have been scratched.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And I would be thinking. I notice as well. I almost have to sort of like fatigue my brain out of wanting to do things.
Okay.
To the point where then it goes, right, you've done however many hours or whatever today. Now go and enjoy that, because you don't even want to think about it. As a reward in a way. Exactly.
Do you gamify
exactly
it
like a reward. Yeah,
okay,
I do.
Fine.
I do. I find it useful to sort of take that perspective, but there is a sort of. And this is the point I would bring back to consistency here, of necessity, that sometimes you can't do that. For whatever reason, if you're going out from 9 a.m, you're going on a road trip, for instance, you're not going to have the time to do all your self-improvement shit.
No,
so
no, you're not.
you know, there are things to compensate there where it's like, okay, you could wake up an hour earlier and get a few bits done.
Yeah.
But I have to keep in check with myself where it's like, okay, what's actually more important here? As you said, what am I going to get more gain and fulfillment out of?
Yeah.
Am I going to get more out of my cold shower and meditating? Or am I going to get more out of actually enjoying the time I've got with my friends?
Yeah, I mean, it's preference. I think it basically is. And for the record, I still obviously look after myself for other people as well. It's important. You know, you get in shape for your girlfriend. Your girlfriend does the same for you, hopefully. And you know, it's a weird dynamic, but it's important to have both, I think, but in a healthy way, obviously. You know, you don't want to do the extreme of the other one, because if I was to go to the extreme with the friends, it would be sort of in the same ballpark of negativity, because I would be getting nothing done for myself. So it's like, I suppose there's a healthy balance you can find. It's just different for everyone.
Yeah, I think Chris Williamson had a point on this actually that I thought was really nice. He said he doesn't think he'd ever be able to attain the level of sort of like billionaire status, that really sharkish, cutthroat type businessman, because he cares about other things too much.
Yeah,
it's like he's also got another lovely quote on this, on how you shouldn't idolise people. You shouldn't have heroes, because you don't know what that person has sacrificed to be who they are. And almost invariably, he adds, the person who is, you know, your Michael Jordans of the world have sacrificed everything else to be Michael Jordan. You know, to be that good at basketball. Everything else has suffered. And you see it. I remember speaking to my brother. He was sat in that chair, and he said about he used to be he was working in a Michelin star restaurant. He's no longer a chef.
Okay.
And he said some of the people there, some of the chefs, were so psychopathic, essentially. Yeah. And he said it's like they had got to this point where they were so successful in front of a dish. You know, they were Michelin star chefs. They were cream, you know, the best at what they did. But everything else suffered. You had nothing else. It was, you were a wonderful chef, but horrendous father and a poor husband and not a good brother. And I think that is very important to realise when it comes to self-improvement and sort of just bringing this all together into a package, is if you want to be sort of relentlessly consistent, that comes at a price. Yeah. And the price will be something important to you. And it will likely... Sacrifice. It is sacrifice. I think this is something, unfortunately, I spent quite a long time not actually understanding this until all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks, that I thought, gosh, this self-improvement stuff's not that difficult, you know. You know, the 6 a.m.'s kind of hard, and the workouts, but basically this is all right. And then all of a sudden the sort of relational implications started coming into play, and I thought, this is the price you pay. You know, there are things that the hidden costs of your efforts, and I think that's something important for people to realise, is similar to the point of injuries, it does come at a price. You know, you're not just doing it's opportunity cost, I suppose. Right. Because if you say, right, I'm not going out with my friends this morning because I'm doing my routine, well, great, you've done your routine, but the cost of that has been the enjoyment of going out with your friends. Yeah, for sure. You know, and you've missed that. And that's, you know, everyone needs to have good experiences in their life. And I feel like I say the point again, you're going to remember that experience hanging out with friends more than you'll remember that cold shower you had one morning, or that stretching session you had. And I just think, well, I'm very fond of my stretching sessions. I love stretching, don't get me wrong. I'm just not going to remember them unless something goes wrong horribly. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I probably remember about 3 of the cold showers I've had in however many thousand. And they were probably some of the first ones, right? Yeah. yeah, they would be. Yeah, I probably know one every about 200. Yeah. But you're right, you know, of course, it's the micro on that point, where it's like, you don't remember the individual, you remember the message you send to yourself. Yeah, I suppose, I'm someone who does this. But you're totally right. If you were to compile 90% of the good feeling that I have from doing one good thing consistently, it probably wouldn't compare to one meeting with friends, to be honest. In terms of actual enjoyment, probably not there. But then again, it is those steps when you do things that are productive,
they contribute to your life,
Yeah,
even in these interactions as well. Like if you were to, I don't know, if you were applying for like a public speaker job, for example, but you're not so good at public speaking, you would take steps in order to improve at public speaking by, I don't know, going out in the street, doing questionnaires, talking to random people, maybe presenting to a group of your friends, and you'd get better at that. And that would make your experiences better with public speaking and that job itself, so it can benefit your life in other ways. And it's the same with your friends. If you take an interest in what they are interested in, or you have the same interests, it's obviously, going to make your experiences better. So it's the same thing in my opinion. I think they coincide.
Yeah. I have this is something that I have had to sort of bear on quite noticeably recently, is having a control of the fact that your friends your relationships and your friends are a great deal more important than your routine, your workout plan, and all of this. Sure. And I think I have to say, for what it's worth, I remember us talking about this not so long ago, and I do think your perspective I remember you saying very sort of noticeably putting your relationships in front of everything else. And I think that certainly flipped some form of switch for me, where it's like, I'm in a bit of a dad arc at the moment.
All right.
Where it's like...
Are you a dad?
I might be.
Okay.
No.
Oh, you're not? Okay, right.
Not. We need a girlfriend.
We haven't spoken about that yet, so I don't know.
We need a girlfriend for those ones.
Right, fine.
No,
you don't need one. You don't need one.
Well, that's a good point. It's 2025.
Yeah, it is. You can adopt.
Yeah. Well, for the sake of the listeners, I'm not adopting a kid just yet.
Okay.
Maybe a dog.
Maybe.
And I've noticed recently I've had more of a bearing to sort of pay attention to the fact that there is actually no point in doing any of the self-improvement stuff if you don't have anyone to show up for.
Okay.
I remember I had a friend of mine, Ollie, came in, and he was talking about the fact, it's sort of voicing this cliched, sort of trite aphorism of, when you see people say, if you just lock in for the next 3 years, 10 hours a day. And he was like, but I'm not going to have anyone to enjoy that with after the 3 years.
It's very fair, yeah.
I'm not going to have any friends. My family probably won't appreciate me very much for the fact that I've just put them totally on the back foot for the last few years. That's not happy. And I think self-improvement is one of those things where, touching back on the point we had at the start of this, where it's like, you get into it, you hustle like fuck, and then you realise at some point, you're like, this needs a bit of fine tuning here. Actually, like I need to pivot and make sure actually that I'm not a fucking incel who has no bearing on anything but the fact that I've done my cold shower today and I've meditated and I've got my journal in. I've come closer to realisation on the point of, there is actually no point in you doing any of this good stuff for anyone. Of course it serves yourself, but why do you want to be the best version of yourself? Well, it's not to just hold yourself in. It's so that you're a more appealing option for people. Yeah,
that's true.
We're as you said, we are a social species, and as a result of that, the reason why you want to be better is to be a more attractive prospect.
Yeah.
You want to be better for partners, you want to be a nicer friend, you want to be a better, show up better for your family, you want to be able to provide. That's a big thing for men.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can have all the skills to do that, but if you miss the critical element of having people to provide those skills for, then how useful actually are they? Yeah,
I mean, it's a big misdirection, I think. And that's what's never mentioned in these, self-improvement videos and the hype videos and things like that. They just say, do this, get a routine, and they're so confident in the way they say it as well, but they don't mention any negatives, and that's always a red flag for me. There's no con or sort of something to weigh against that benefit that you're going to get. But it's interesting. It's just I think it's a double-edged sword in a way. It's just again, preference. I think whatever anyone prefers in their life. If they like to be alone, screw it. Do what you want. Improve yourself for yourself, not other people. But everyone has their reasons. So
Has there been any sort of advice that you've taken on from self-improvement that you now look back on and think, what the fuck was I thinking?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was proper on that train, you know, the proper, like no fap.
David Goggins.
Well, no, it was. I wasn't actually on David Goggins. Somehow he's like the main like fitness / motivational speaker, but somehow I've like meandered around him, gone through everyone else, and then come back to this point. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's pretty cool. But he's a bit extreme for me personally. But I get why people obviously like him and things like that. But I have been through it all. I went through a red pill arc.
I'm going to stop you on that point because red pill. I've always heard the phrase red pill, and it's been dashed towards me at a time or another.
Okay.
What actually is red pill?
So my opinion of red pill, I don't know if it's like true on a factual sense, but my opinion of red pill is having sort of I think red pill or the blue pill, both of them are referring to realization on relationships and women, I suppose, and money, and basically the way I would see it is red pill is sort of focusing yourself, getting loads of money, girls don't care about you, it's all about themselves, and they're just looking for better mates and things like this. I mean, you know Andrew Tate. I mean, it's pretty much Andrew Tate is a red pill king god, and then you've got the other side of the fence is blue pill, which is the opposite, where it's like, oh no, I'm sort of in the middle of both, to be honest with you. I think there's...
You microdosed both?
Oh, well, no, I never went full blue pill. I lean towards full red pill, I'll be honest.
Well, where's blue pill then?
I think blue pill is just the other end of the spectrum, where it's sort of get offended by everything. I think it's like the woke side of things. But again, I don't know the actual definition of red pill and blue pill. It's just my perception of them. And then you got black pill, which is I've got no hope. Nothing matters.
Why the fuck are people voicing that?
Well, it's like nihilistic people, you know. But they it's funny. It's funny. I like it comes into that. I think a lot of red pill people are incels and a lot of blue pill. I mean, the definition of incel is obviously involuntarily celibate. Yeah. So I can't imagine a lot of people are voluntarily. I mean, maybe for religious reasons, but I think the word incel has obviously gotten a new definition as over these two red pill blue pill arcs. I've been through all that, and yes, I realised I was a bit of an idiot when I had those opinions. But but it's funny. It's funny when you look back at it.
You can't not go through it though. That's the thing.
No, I suppose I know a couple of my friends that haven't gone through it. But then again, it's like. Sorry, were you saying you have to sort of learn sometimes?
If you're going in that direction, if you're doing the self-improvement thing, you will go through the phase where you're just like, you have no understanding of why you're doing the good things, you're just doing them.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the information you consume as well. When every day you're consuming the same thing, but just reskinned, you're going to start believing these things because it's the only thing you're watching. And obviously with YouTube algorithms, Instagram at the time, they obviously take what you watch and they throw it back at you in the feed with their algorithms. And so you're just consistently consuming, I suppose I was consistently consuming red pill content and started believing all these things. You know, you had things like, oh, it's so dumb when you look back at it, like Fresh and Fit podcasts popping up on my feed. And I can't believe because they just shower women just for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I thought that was like smart and big brained, and it's like, yeah, I don't know why I did that, but it's all part of the journey, I suppose.
It is.
Yeah, it's because the thing is, they do make some points, I suppose, but it's just 1 point per 100 horrible ones, if you know what I mean, and the clipped one's always the decent point. Yeah. So yeah, it's that's probably an experience I've had with things where I've just gone back, what an idiot.
Well, you ever Tate Pilled? Did you ever go Andrew Tate?
I actually never did. No? I went through a phase where his videos popped up, and I genuinely thought he was a character. That entire time. So I never fully believed in his push. I still kind of do believe his character, to be honest.
I have to say I agree.
And there were just some funny memes. I thought I didn't think it was very. I thought when he said like breathe air, like that was funny. Obviously, if you don't drink sparkling water, you're gay. That's good. Like it's like there's like a test where he says if they say, oh, I don't like bubbles, they're gay or something, which is just so dumb when you think about it.
Sounds like something someone gay would say.
Well, look, I'm not, I promise. Yeah, I actually don't mind sparkling water, for the record.
Well, there you go.
It's confirmed. I'm obviously not gay.
You can sit with Tate.
Yeah, I can.
As I drink my dull water.
Yeah, dull. Yeah, there's a bit of bubbles coming up.
There's no bubbles.
No, it's yeah. I was enjoying his content. We'll put it that way. I wasn't Tate Pilled. But, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was very much David Goggins.
Okay. That's a healthier option, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Tate for me, I'm totally on board with the idea of sort of. I found him entertaining. And then occasionally I'd see something. Oh, do you know what, actually, that's pretty good. I like that. But for the most part, I did see him as a caricature. Right. I thought there was an act there. And as I say, I still think that's the case. But mine was Goggins. Goggins was the one for me where it's like, I don't know how I came across him. I have no idea. But at some point, I decided that the best plan of action was the villain arc.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, and when you're on the villain arc, the best man to be by your side is David Goggins.
Okay.
He's the one. I'm going to use this as a bit of a sort of David Goggins riff just for the point.
Sure.
In my recent sort of hippie dad arc empathy mode of being a bit more sort of pulling away from just the gas, just hard work, in my sort of arc of applying a bit more empathy to essentially everything, and not being so just knuckle-headed with things. I've sort of pulled away from the Goggins idea quite a bit because, Goggins is like the quintessential just work. In doing that, I've sort of felt a bit guilty. Okay. Because it's like, David Goggins as an icon, I know he just said not to idolise our icons, but as an icon, I can't say he's not a hero of mine. Okay. As someone to sort of propel you forward towards good things, to me, there's no one better. Okay. To have someone who's like, to put you from a shit place where I was to a good one, that is a very good step to Gogginify yourself, I suppose. And what I think's interesting with self-improvement on this point is I've been thinking quite a lot recently about how I would sort of like run someone through self-improvement from my perspective.
From the start.
Yeah, like knowing what I know, a few years down the line, having gone through quite a few of the arcs, how would I tell someone to start? Because I thought if I was to tell them what I have, the knowledge I have now of sort of, make sure that you keep your priorities straight and don't work too much and don't work yourself too hard. Make sure that you're empathetic with yourself. I don't think that's the advice that I would have needed to hear at the time. Okay. When I was fat and lazy and stupid and ignorant, I don't think the best advice to give me would have been make sure you don't work too much and keep yourself grounded. Yeah. And I don't think it would have worked. No. And it makes me think, just to that end, that it's like, I do think you have to go through stages of being absolutely focused, homed in on a certain way of being, and then looking back and going, what the fuck was I on about there,
Yeah, I mean, I think it does just work differently for people. And for you, that was the case. I think for me as well, I think I went through a similar thing to you. But I imagine a lot of people I think the idea is just figure it out on their own. Unfortunately, but obviously with in your case, you had help because you had David Goggins. With me, I had every YouTube compilation video of progress. And
was there any guy in particular that stood out?
That's a good question. Probably. I can't remember though. What was I doing? I had weirdly, this is a weird one, off topic. Well, it's on topic, but So I went into MMA for a while, especially through uni. I was very into it. And there's this guy called Firas Sahabi.
Did he go on Rogan?
Possibly, yes.
Is he a trainer?
Yes.
He's
a coach, yeah. So he's George St. Pierre's coach.
Yes, yeah.
And the things he was saying about breathing and like the exercise he does and the conditioning he does and things like that, I was like, damn, that sounds good. That sounds fun. Like that sounds like you're not getting too big. You're not getting immobile. You're efficient muscle. You know, things like that. That sort of motivated me to sort of go and do it. And I watched his technique videos, like wrestling videos. I think he's primarily better at wrestling than he is striking. But he's better both at me. But he was probably a big. He's not as popular as quite a lot of the others, but he was probably quite a big one for me because I was specifically focused on MMA because I was just so into UFC at the time, and you know I still like it, I still enjoy it. It's not as hardcore on it because I'm not going to compete in it. I don't think, I don't want that brain damage. So
yeah, but I mean, I think that's symbolic, I suppose, of the trade-off that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
it's like the thing itself is good, but if you take it too far, you get brain damage.
Yeah,
if you want to take it that far and you're willing to pay the price of the brain damage, fine.
To be great or whatever.
But for a lot of people, essentially all of the elements of self-improvement need to be microdosed, I suppose. You know, like applied where necessary, not just... I think self-improvement is almost that ethos of like, if you're a hammer, then you think everything is a nail. You know, and it's not the case. You need to be... Flexibility, I think, is quite a big part of consistency, where it's like, don't be so sort of...
rigid.
You're rigid, exactly, rigid, to the point where you cannot do anything but what you said you'd do. Find a way to work around it. Do something else. If you can't, you know, if for whatever reason your exercise is not in a position where that's possible, if you're injured and you can't do that, then do something else. Find something else to do. And I think it's hard for people to sort of understand that, particularly at the start of self-improvement, because you don't have experience. And I think with that absence of experience, you think that, you know, I'm going to bring it back actually because I think it's the best example. NoFap is like the best example of this for me. You think that any deviation from that is a failure, categorically, and that's
relapse and then.
But there's so many nuances there.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's not that simple, and I think that's the thing that people lose at the start. And I mean, I'm 3 years down the line, and it's still maybe even 4 years down the line, and it's something that's eluding me. You don't understand the nuance. Right. You just think that's what I need to do. If I don't do it, I failed. Yeah. That's it, and that's quite a pernicious cycle to be in, because I think it almost goes against what it is that self-improvement intends to do, and that's to make you happy. Yeah, true. You know, because you don't feel happy. No. You feel uncomfortable. You're like, you know, you're constantly battling the demons and fighting them off from the door, and it's like, there's a place for that, of course. That's where growth is found. Yeah. But it requires temperance.
I think when it comes to relapsing, alcoholism or whatever, I mean, I can't speak from an alcoholism point of view, but I think the main thing people have to think, and I could be wrong, is just it's not the end of the world. Just go again if that's the problem. Don't let it ruin your day, don't let it ruin your week, because that's what it does. Especially when I relapse on NoFap. I mean, it's a bit of a weird subject to speak about, but
it's no big judgment here. We all understand it.
It's a big it's a big thing on the internet, isn't it? Where you have to I don't know. I remember watching a benefits video. This is another thing I kind of feel stupid on NoFap as well, especially. And it was just saying you got these fucking wild benefits, and it's just like, that is just not true. But at the time, you're like, shit, does this actually happen? Oh my God.
Yeah. Because you don't know otherwise. Like, you haven't done it.
No.